We can start then. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome to Kotak Mahindra Bank's Q4 and full year FY21 results. Joining me today on the virtual podium, you know all the five gentlemen, but I will still briefly introduce them. There's Mr. Uday Kotak, who's a Managing Director and CEO of Kotak Mahindra Bank. And he's joined by Mr. Deepak Gupta, the Joint Managing Director, Mr. KVS Manian, Whole-Time Director and Group President, Mr. Gaurang Shah, Whole-Time Director and Group President, and Mr. Jaimin Bhatt, Group President and Group Chief Financial Officer.
I welcome all my media colleagues and friends. As the COVID pandemic continues to ravage and takes a toll on lives and also livelihoods, I wanted to first acknowledge the fact that many of you from the media profession have risked your lives, and actually some of the members in the media community have also lost their lives in this very tragic period which we all and the country are going through. And it is also a fact that you're doing your duty. It is, in my view, absolutely an essential service which you're providing, but taking significant risks to life. And I was just looking at, before I get into the Kotak story and everything else, I think this is the time for us to first really talk about this unparalleled challenge which each of us in India are facing, and our first duty to meet the pandemic and the challenges out of that. And I was looking at the Kotak balance sheet of people, and I'm not talking about the balance sheet of the financial numbers first. I looked at the balance sheet of people. We are 70,000 people. And between April 1, 2020 and April and 31st March 2021, across the group, we lost 17 of our Kotakites in the 1 year, April to March 2021. I was looking at the number from April 1 to May 2, 2021. That is the period of just about a month. We have lost additionally 17 people to the COVID pandemic. What we lost in 1 year, we have lost in the last 1 month. And it shakes the very foundation of life and our challenge which we are going through today as a company, as a society, as a country. And therefore, the first job of any responsible institution today has to be to focus on saving lives now. And in that spirit, we have taken a decision yesterday to take a call that with reference to any employee of Kotak, unless it is an essential service required under law for that person to attend, he or she shall not attend without prior approval of senior management. Therefore, it is not a choice. We have taken a call that we need to protect the lives of our people. And therefore, we've started this for a 1 week basis, and we'll review the situation every week. And I am therefore sharing with you that we genuinely believe the time has come for us first to protect lives of each and every Indian, starting with each of us in our respective space, which in our case is our immediate company, Kotak. And we have taken this call, and we are backing out with making sure that we protect lives of every employee out of our 70,000 employees. This is the most important part of our responsibility in our human balance sheet. Moving beyond that into Kotak, the financial and the business side. As we see the year which has gone by, our core focus as a financial institution has been to be a responsible financial institution focused on sustainability and resilience, and to be able to fly through cloudy skies, which we are going through. And if you see in our numbers, it is precisely that. We have had an appropriate mix of what is right for our balance sheet, what is right for our P&L, even as we ensure that we continue to provide the key service to the Indian economy, which is providing credit and providing safety to our depositors along the way. We are obviously in the business of banking and financial services. We are happy to provide it across the board, which we have done through this, including transformation from a much more physical world to a more digital being. And we see a lot of opportunity of being able to do our serving the people of India, at the same time the serving the economy of India, to take care of both lives and livelihood, even as we grow our earnings and balance sheet, but keeping in mind, more importantly, our responsibility and our contract with Indians and Indian citizens, that we will keep the Indian economy growing, even as we feel and focus on the challenges for lives. The ultimate responsibility for us as a financial institution is to take care of all our stakeholders, but most importantly, as of now, lives first, and thereafter livelihoods as well, because it is our core responsibility to take care of lives and livelihood. And with that, I will now ask my colleague Jaimin Bhatt to take you through the business and financial numbers, and we can then go into question and answers. Over to you, Jaimin Bhatt.
Thank you, Udai. Yes, as Udai mentioned, this has been pretty much an unprecedented year. So just to take you through the numbers for the bank and standalone and consolidated for the quarter and the full year. Let me start with the bank standalone. We end this year with a operating profit of 12,215 crores, which is about 22% higher than what we did last year. This quarter, we had an operating profit of 3,407 crores. At a post-tax level, we ended this quarter at a profit of 1,682 crores, which is about 33% higher than what we did in Q4 last year. If I take the income statement, our NII, we grew this quarter 8% from what was the number same period last year. But recognize the fact that, as we've disclosed, this year we had the reversal of the interest on the interest following the Supreme Court verdict, as a result of which we've taken an estimated hit of about 110 crores in our NII number for this quarter. Post taking that hit, we end this quarter with a NIM number of 4.39 for this quarter, and for the full year at 4.41%. Our other income for this quarter has seen a sharp rise at 1950 crores as against 1489 crores for the same period last year. And we end the full year with a other income of 5,459 crores. The component of fees and services, which is part of the other income, contributed 1,378 crores of other income for this quarter, coming on the back of both distribution costs, distribution fees, and other fees. And this itself is about a 23% rise from the previous quarter. Other than fees and services, the rest of the other income was buoyed by some rise in treasury income, which we had a total other income of 572 crores this quarter. On expenses front, we continue to have a scenario where our total expenses for this year are marginally lower than the whole of the last year. We ended this year with a total expense of 8,584 crores as against 8,800 crores for the whole period last year. We've had savings both on the employee cost and the non-employee cost. Employee cost this quarter, we had some benefit thanks to interest rates, as well as having invested some amount of the money and getting a lower hit on retirement benefits. On the total provisions, we have taken the full hit of, we've not dipped into the COVID provisions, which we had created over the fourth quarter last year and largely first quarter of this year. We hold COVID provisions of 1,279 crores, which is about 0.6% of our net advances, and we have not dipped into that and continued on that basis. For this quarter, we take a total provision of 1,179 crores, and which takes us to a total credit cost other than the COVID provisions for the year at 84 bips, which compares with the 67 bips which we had for the same period last year. Our overall advances, we end with 2,23,700 crores approximately, which is on a quarter-on-quarter basis, a jump of 4.5%. On a year-on-year basis, a smaller jump of 1.8%. And if I look at the components of where we've grown, we have seen sharp rise in a lot of areas which we had focused on. So for example, the home loan book has seen a growth in the quarter of close to 10%. The secured consumer book, which is the working capital involved, has grown again a 6.3% for the quarter. I'm talking about not annualized. The agri book has again grown by close to 8% in the quarter, and commercial vehicle construction equipment book again has grown 9% in the quarter. And all of these had shown decent growth on a year-on-year basis too. The one area where we had consciously talked about it and have slowed down is the unsecured retail, where unsecured retail, which is largely credit cards, personal loans, business loans, consumer durables, and micro loans, from a number of 7.5% of our overall advances book as of March 20, we are now down to 5.8% of our total advances book as of March 21. And all of these have seen reasonably sharp drops in the total numbers. Our total gross non-performing asset as of March 21 at 3.25%. If I compare this with the pro forma numbers which we had as of December 20, it was 3.27%. Similarly, the net NPA marginally down from December to 1.24 to 1.21%. And effectively, therefore, if I look at overall provisions that we carry today, we are carrying about 95% of our GNPA is covered by our provision numbers. And our SMA2 number at as of March 21 at 110 crores, which is just about 0.05% of our overall advances book. During this year, there were restructuring schemes announced by the RBI. Our total restructured book is a small number of 435 crores. Our deposits story continues to be good. Our CASA ratio, we end March 21 with a total number of 60.4%. In addition to that, our sweep deposits are at 7.5% of our total deposit base. If we look at the savings accounts, we've seen on an average savings account on a year-on-year basis, that's seen a growth of 27%. Our average current account on a full year basis has seen a growth of 17%. Our total deposits, which is current savings plus the smaller ticket deposit, which are up to 5 crores, now constitute 91% of our total deposit base. Our capital adequacy ratio at the bank standalone, 22.26, which includes Tier 1 itself of 21.38. If I go to the consolidated number, we closed this quarter at a consolidated profit of 2,589 crores, which is about 36% higher than 1,905 crores, which we had declared in Q4 last year. For the full year, the consolidated profits ends at 9,990 crores, which is about 16% higher than the same period last year. Our non-banking entities and the subsidiaries and the associates put together contributed 35% of our post-tax profit for the quarter. Apart from the bank, the largest contributors for the year happen to be Kotak Securities, which clocked a profit of 793 crores this year versus 550 for the whole of last year. The life insurance entity ended with a profit of 692 crores this year, against 608 last year. The two NBFCs, Kotak Prime delivered 535 crores and the Kotak Investments 258 crores. The mutual fund business contributed another 346 crores and the international subsidiaries brought in another 154 crores during this year. Our assets under management across the group have grown significantly, and we closed this year with a total assets under management and advisory of 3,23,000 crores, which is a jump of 43% on a year-on-year basis. The domestic mutual fund itself growing by 50% plus on a year-on-year basis to 32,000 crores. Our market share in the Kotak Securities cash market continues to be healthy at 9.3%. And in the insurance segment, again, we've seen decent growth on a YOY basis on the gross written premiums. Our capital adequacy at the group level, again, continues to be very strong at 23.4% overall, of which 22.7 is at the tier 1 level itself. Both Kotak Prime and Kotak Investments continuing to have very high capital adequacy and healthy capital adequacy ratios. We end this quarter now with a book value per share of 426 rupees per share. So those were the broad highlights for the quarter and the year for the bank and the consolidated numbers. We would be open to taking questions, please.
Hi, gentlemen. Thanks for this. So firstly, my question is, you made it very clear, lives over livelihood, but I just wanted to understand from a bank's perspective as well, how do you see, because last year we had a clear-cut lockdown. This time, how much of an impact you're going to assess in terms of your asset quality, in terms of businesses? And this is a really good call that you have taken, that no employee will attend any non-essential service as far as, you get a permission. How do you plan to go by that after that 1 week? Is that the testing period? And then probably you take it from there.
See, Priyanka, we are all working through these testing times. So we are doing 1 week at a time. My hope is that the COVID curve follows what happened in the UK. Therefore, you saw a sharp up and then a sharp down. God willing, if that happens, then it should be a short period of time within which we would have saved the lives of a lot of people by doing the right things for people. The people balance sheet, in my view, matters much more than the financial balance sheet at this stage of our evolution. And therefore, we will watch week by week. We are committed to save the life of every Kotak employee we can. And it is not, we believe it is extremely short-term and short-sighted to ask our collection people to go out for collection of monies, meeting other customers face to face, because it is putting our employees to risk, it is putting our customers to risk. Yes, we do run the risk by taking this call that at least for the next 1 week, and we will watch the situation, and the way we will determine whether to extend or not will be dependent on how we see the COVID situation evolving. I genuinely believe that just as we expect the country and the government to be responsible, it is the responsibility of every company and an institution or a bank or anyone else to do whatever it takes to protect the lives of its people, rather than saying, go out and get the short-term targets of improving your collection efficiency. This point of time is not the time. 1 week, 2 weeks, I hope the situation changes and the COVID curve begins to come down. And once we get confidence, we will take a decision on that on ourselves. Yes, are there risks? Of course. But when I look at the people balance sheet, I want to protect that risk versus the short-term financial risk the firm is taking. I hope that explains where we stand on this.
I had one more question, sir, just to understand, RBI has also said that they've capped the tenure for MDs and CEOs. How is that going to play out for Kotak Mahindra Bank, once your tenure gets over? Because they've said that the current tenures can be completed. Beyond that, they have put the cap and those rules have to be followed. So what is going to be the plan for that going forward, sir?
So Priyanka, right now, the tenure approved for me is up to 31st December 2023. So you're going to see me around as CEO at least till then. Okay. So that is one. Number two, the board and the bank are fully committed to long-term stakeholder value. And the bank as an institution will do whatever it takes as appropriate to ensure long-term stakeholder and shareholder value as it thinks about the future. And I wanted to, through you and through all your other colleagues, say that the commitment to institution building long-term is the core to our values. And we'll take whatever is necessary to maintain and achieve that, as we have done in our entire journey over last 1985 to 2021. So it's a 36-year journey as a NBFC, which started with 30 lakhs capital in 1985. That value for all stakeholders is at the heart of long-term sustained institutional building. And it is about that institution which will be the driving force for the board and the management to take it forward. Thank you.
Hello, Mr. Kotak, Mr. Bhatt, and everyone. Quickly to follow up on Priyanka's question, we understand, you are committed to long-term institution building and that's your core value. But what are some of the succession planning, processes you're putting in place, given that now there is a defined, deadline to the tenure of the current management, including some of the whole-time directors? That is one. And the second question I wanted to ask is, you've not dipped into any of your COVID provisioning. The SMA numbers also look quite small, about 110. Could you give us any sense as to what you're expecting with the second wave of COVID? How much stress addition are you anticipating, and to what extent are you already prepared for that? Thank you.
Ritu, I think on the point of succession planning, any financial institution or any company for that matter always plans what happens if a senior leader gets run over by a bus. In today's time, the risk of being affected by COVID is even higher. Therefore, succession planning has to be a continuous process which every institution constantly thinks about. And I would like to tell you that our board members and the board are fully aware of their responsibilities, and they will act in a manner which is appropriate and responsible. So that is the point on succession planning, and that is our perspective on the first question. Therefore, 2.5 years, 3 years, whatever the period is, versus the risk of COVID, which is here and now. So you have multiple risks in the journey of an institution and of individuals who work for that institution. As I mentioned to you, we are in a period where you are running much more risk to life than ever else for most people today. So we have to first protect that, and therefore succession is at the core of any institution. On the second point, it is about how we have built and how we have thought through our strategy on building our lending and asset book. We have said that we have to fly through the clouds. We will fly at a pace which makes sense for us. Therefore, we have had, and something which we have shared with you across many quarters, that we actually continue to believe, and COVID 2.0 increases the risks, that the most challenging and the stress part of the lending books are going to be the lower end of society, where the pain is even more. And therefore, unsecured consumer retail, whether it is consumer loans, whether it's credit cards, whether it's microfinance loans, those are the loans which always will be at much higher risk. Therefore, consciously, if you look at our unsecured retail book, we have dropped it, as Jaimin mentioned, from a number of 7.5% to 5.8% of our total lending book. On the other hand, some of the areas we have actually grown our lending. If you look at housing finance, we are today the lowest rate provider of home loans in India at 6.65%. And we have seen a very significant growth in our home loan book over the last 4 to 6 months. The advantage of a home loan is there is an underlying home which a customer or a consumer cares about. And in the COVID era, the central importance of home for every person has increased dramatically. Therefore, we are very open to lending and providing the credit facilities to the economy. But we also have an obligation to our stakeholders, including our depositors. And we do believe there are pockets where we have to be careful and pockets where we will take more risks and grow a balance sheet and P&L. We are not scared of growing, but we'll grow on our terms and in segments where we believe that we can produce returns for the risks we take. I hope that answers your second question.
It does. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ritu. Saloni?
Yeah, hi, good afternoon, Mr. Kotak. It's nice to see you. So I just wanted to take forward that answer, which you gave just now. Basically, we have seen a lot of lenders who are saying that, especially on the NBFC side, that especially in April, they have seen a drop in collection ratios. They have also seen higher check bounce rates. What is the sense that you are getting from the month of April? I know we are speaking of the earnings of March quarter, but if you could just throw some color on that, what sort of asset quality impact can we anticipate? And also on the statement that you made, as CII president, you said that the government, really needs to sort of bring in economic reforms to help, in this second wave. What sort of measures can we anticipate? Because even last time, what sort of fiscal measures were taken, they were criticized that it was not enough. So do we have the fiscal space to give any support to the economy?
Okay, I'll answer the second one, Saloni, and I'll request my colleague Gaurang Shah, who handles credit, to answer on how is the flow on the recovery side in April. So on the broader thing about the economy, I think the biggest struggle which governments around the world have faced is the battle between lives and livelihood. Because ultimately loss of livelihood also leads to loss of lives. But I think the cycle is three parts. The first point of the cycle is if your healthcare facility is finding itself overwhelmed, then there is an immediate threat to life. After that, it starts reflecting in loss of livelihood, which in turn ultimately hits lives. But we are here and now, therefore immediate threat of loss of lives is something which we have to stem because of the challenges to our healthcare facilities. And that is where we are today in the first week of May. We hope in the next 1-2 weeks or so, this sort of moderates, where the healthcare facilities are able to cope up and protect lives, whether it is hospital beds, whether it is oxygen availability, whether it is medicines. So that is one part as we think about the bigger picture, and we are intractably connected between COVID and business outcomes. So we have to be very clear about that. And in that context, what can governments and policymakers do? I believe we have come at a point of time where we will have to be much more open to expand the balance sheet of the central bank. And I think the central bank has given signals, RBI has given signals through their GSAP program and others. But if COVID situation is what it is, the expansion of the central bank balance sheet becomes inevitable to ensure that the state is able to support the needs of the people and the economy in the interim. So that is my view on how we will have to face this. We cannot take a view of being completely what I call as first principles economist at this stage of time. When we are out to save lives and livelihood, expansion of the central bank balance sheet is something which is a serious option on the table. Coming specific to Kotak, Gaurang will give you more color, but my view, and this is true for the financial sector, the first half of April, actually the collections were in good shape. It is only towards the third and fourth week of April that we saw, as the COVID wave started hitting harder, that we saw inability of people to go out and everything else. So Gaurang, over to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think it's too early to say that how it will impact, because many times the customer has been impacted because of the COVID lockdowns and inability of our guys to probably go and collect, plus our own staff, which will be in credit or collection, which is getting impacted. But I think the broad trend, as we look at the books which are secured ones, like, on a, say, consumer loan side, so which is, say, mortgages or, say, working capital up to, say, 10 crore, and loan against properties and all that, those books are holding on significantly better compared to the unsecured one. So I think it's too early. How fast we come out of this, maybe if we flatten by, say, June, July or something, then probably it may not result in a material impact. But it's very difficult to pinpoint and assess exactly how much it will impact.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yeah, hi. Thanks, Feroza.
Yeah.
Am I audible to you all, Mr. Kotak,
Yes.
Mr. Bhatt?
Yes.
Yeah. Sir, Mr. Kotak, the question I had now, yeah, I understand that your current focus is to maintain this stable balance sheet rather than looking at the short-term risk on your financial balance sheet. But just trying to get a sense from you, you have a very high capital base. You have a very good low-cost funding base as well, with the CASA ratio at 60%. Does no growth or low growth, is that a problematic place to be in for a very long time?
I use the phrase, I believe we will fly through the clouds, and we are not hunkering down, but we will take opportunity on our terms. And we do believe there is enough opportunity coming on our terms. I think probably like all of us in India made the mistake of underestimating the challenge of COVID 2.0. We declared victory as a country, as people, and as financial sector by January, February, that COVID is behind us, and we were almost triumphant about victory. And then we got hit by this. So the true sense is we have to grow. We are committed to grow and support the Indian economy and for our shareholders and stakeholders. But we will do it by flying through the clouds on terms which make sense for us to be doing, keeping in mind with certain assumptions today. My current assumption is this is a sharp spike up, and hopefully it will be a sharp move down in the next couple of months. On that basis, we are comfortable flying through the clouds. But we have to be ready and not make the mistake we made after 1.0, that there could be a 3.0. And this time around, we should not let the economy get caught napping. We must plan for it, prepare for it, be ready for it. And our lending and business strategy has to assume, at this stage, our assumption is that this is a sharp spike, will correct itself, but we have to be ready for the risk of a COVID 3.0. And that's how we are preparing ourselves and working on our strategy. We are also using this time for strengthening a lot of things, including on the technology and digital side, to make us much more future ready, which we think will be a big opportunity in the months ahead.
Okay, if you can afford me one more question, sir, with respect to the unsecured portfolio, now that has come down to about 5.8% of the loan book, as per your investor presentation. That's come down from 7.5% last year. So is unsecured now completely out of favor as far as Kotak Mahindra Bank is concerned?
No, we are not saying that. The one thing you run in the risk underwriting business, never say never. What we are saying is we are much lighter. And the fact that we are lighter enables us to take risks when we think the time is right. And probably that may not be too far. We will certainly step on the gas and do credit underwriting. And keep in mind, there's a huge collection challenge going to come for the entire financial sector. Therefore, being light at this time is not a bad place to be at all.
And her question to you is, Mr. Kotak, you have sent the message to the Indian government asking urgent anti-COVID measures and economic support for the Indian economy. Would you like to tell us more? What do you ask for?
I think my position on this is that we are at a point of time when we have to do whatever it takes to save lives first, even as we battle for livelihood. And if our healthcare capacity is currently going through its challenges, we must be ready to curtail non-essential economic activity. I'm using my words very carefully, non-essential economic activity, because that is something which we must use that space for saving lives. For essential economic activity, like movement of oxygen, like movement of the production and distribution of drugs or medicines, activities to create more hospitals, hospital beds. Those are essential economic activities and activities required directly helping to save lives. But on the other hand, if there are non-essential economic activities, we should be ready to say And this is not only to the government, it is for each of us in our business and our responsibility to say, we will curtail it to save the lives of our own employees. And we owe it to them. And each responsible corporate citizen does that, we would have helped breaking the chain. And I'm not saying long term, 1 week, 2 weeks, maybe a little longer, but we have to do it now. I hope that answers the question.
Surabhi Prasad.
Hello.
Yeah, Surabhi.
Yeah, hi. I had two questions. One is that, what is your expectation on, the economy, given the kind of disruption we are seeing right now? And while there'll be a base effect at play, what are you worried that this year, again, COVID will have an impact on growth? And secondly, in terms of lending, you're going slow on your unsecured side, but overall, what is your strategy for lending this year? Thank you.
So first of all, I have great confidence in the resilience of the Indian economy. We all last April, May were all in a little bit of a shock because we didn't know what hit us. Okay. And we came out of it. And by September, October, the economy was getting back much faster than what was anticipated. What we could have done better in terms of managing of the economy, and I don't think that has got anything to do with economic manager, it has got to do with all of us Indians, is we should have been better risk managers against COVID. And the key to having sustainable economy is getting our act together against COVID and managing that risk better. Because I am confident the economy will look after itself if we can do better on COVID management. This is my genuine view. The second point is with reference to unsecured credit. Is that correct? And how do we see? We are confident of credit growth. We are not going into a shell. We believe that actually opportunity for lending and supporting the economy is coming in a bigger way for people who have kept themselves light and kept their powder dry. And we see that is the time which is coming for us. And we will be out there to support customers and the economy and grow our balance sheet on terms which make sense for us. Therefore, we are quietly positive. We believe the economic turnaround will be fast, provided we can manage the COVID crisis well over the next 2 to 3 months.
Advait, are you there?
Hi, good evening, sir. So just question on the unsecured portfolio. Obviously, unsecured and your personal loan consumer durables is down from the year. Obviously, this is partly de-risking from your side, and perhaps also some credit cards were pushed off the base, inactive cards. I just wanted to know, what are the spending patterns? Are people just not spending anymore like they used to? I understand Q1, Q2, this consumption on credit card would have been lower, but your December numbers seem to have were improving throughout the quarter. So what happened in the last 3 months? If I could get some understanding on that offtake of credit, why that has that slumped, or is it a conscious decision from the bank not to lend during this quarter?
I'll ask my colleague Deepak Gupta, who does a lot of analysis all the time. Deepak.
Well, spending has continuously gone up, but don't relate spending on credit cards straight away to credit, because the set of customers who result in credit are really the revolver kinds, and you normally don't have more than, let's say, 45-46% of your customers typically as revolvers, whereas 100% of them will really spend. So spendings have gone up progressively. They're still not exactly at the same level as pre-COVID levels, but they are pretty much there really. And they've gone up very significantly, Jan, Feb, during that period of time.
So are you seeing a replacement of credit card with other credit products like personal loans, buy now, pay later?
No, not personal loans. You see, the spending piece happens not necessarily only through credit card. Okay. Yeah. Say, for example, a very large part of it today happens through UPI, which maybe traditionally would have happened even through a credit card. Or maybe some of it has shifted to a debit card. Like I said, you see, a credit card customer is not necessarily only a credit customer. The real credit customer out of that is the person who actually revolves, which means he rolls over. He just pays the minimum amount due, 5%, 10% every month, and just keeps moving forward. So spends have continuously been going up. Of course, this is pre-April, not during the course of April.
So just a last question. So your investment book has gone up by about 30,000 crores over the last year. This is a trend I noticed in Q1 and Q2 that banks were investing in a lot more government securities, corporate bonds. Your credit substitutes book has gone up by nearly 6,000 crores. Is this how banks are? You see banks still making yield on in the next 2 quarters if the credit situation is still tight or still risky?
Manian, who handles our corporate institutional bank.
Yeah. So it's obviously we have used credit substitutes as a strategy in this period because for two reasons. One is, of course, it helps us manage risk more proactively. One, but more importantly, as you are aware, bonds do not attract PSL costs, and when you have extremely fine pricing, it's better to do them as bonds than as loans. And therefore, we have used this consciously as a strategy. And that's why you see, if you take a combination of our advances and the trade substitutes book, by and large, it has remained flattish. While the advances looks like it has dropped, the credit substitutes has gone up. So it's a conscious strategy, and we think it's both from risk and pricing perspective, it's a good thing to do.
Is this something that we can see? Sorry, last question. Is this something that we see go forward, that corporate lending will be replaced by credit substitutes across banks, not just for Kotak?
So this happens in cycles, as you know. During high liquidity times, the bond markets are usually more price efficient. But in tight liquidity conditions, the bond markets get tighter on or get higher on pricing. So it's a question of what part of the cycle you are. So in when the liquidity conditions are tighter, bond prices look higher, loan prices look better. So it is easier to put on loans in your books, and the reverse happens in the easy liquidity conditions. So there is nothing like one is right or other is wrong. It's a matter of what part of the cycle you are in.
Poonam?
Hi, sir. Thank you so much for taking my question. Sir, I have actually a couple of questions, while most of my questions have been answered. First one would be, while you did say that you are fairly confident of growth when the situation ebbs there, which sectors would you be wanting to grow, and would there be any M&A plans as well, as you have good amount of capital sitting on your balance sheet, and also there is lower dividend?
Let me put it this way, whether it's growth organically or inorganic, we are clearly open for business. So both organic and inorganic growth, we are out there. We have got our powder dry. We are in an extremely sound capital position, probably amongst the highest in banking. We've got our risk management framework, which actually has worked extremely well considering the reality we are in today. And we are very open for business, because that's what is the opportunity for our shareholders. That's what the Indian economy needs, and we will do what is in the interest of India and our business, both. And both are possible, both growth organic and inorganic. And in terms of segments, I think that's a question which we have to be very clear. For example, in last April, the immediate reaction was that the real estate market is going to be badly hurt. But the reality is, residential real estate actually benefited out of COVID, while commercial real estate has seen more pain. Similarly, in the first cycle, rural India did well, while urban India was more under pain. Therefore, when you take a decision of which segment of loans, it is linked, we underestimate the linkage of our business strategy with the impact on the different segments of the economy coming out of COVID. Now, this time around, we are all hearing that rural India is also facing the pain, and semi-urban India is also facing the pain of the pandemic, which it had much less pain on the first time around. What is the implication of that in terms of credit demand and credit quality? Therefore, we are going to be surgical. We will spot the opportunity. If we believe the credit pain is transient, we will look through it and we will take the calls. But otherwise, it is horses for courses, sector, segment, geography, district, and then we will take the decisions. India is a large single country, but the impact of the COVID and other factors on the economy are very diverse. Like I still remember when Bombay was going through pain in the first week of April on the COVID numbers. Delhi was hardly there. I mean, there was very low numbers in Delhi, but you see the cycle has turned. Therefore, this is a very fast moving game. And if the traditional thing plays, the sharp spike up and then down, then if that is the play, I think it's easier for us to manage. But if it is going to be volatile, where you suddenly keep on seeing cycles, then the challenges are larger. I hope I've tried to explain to you the challenges,
Yes,
but also the opportunity through it.
Yes, sir. So my next question is, any plans of listing the subsidiaries, like we are seeing that the life insurance business, also your capital markets business have done fairly well. Would there be any plans to list them now or in the near future?
None of those businesses have a need for capital or a strategic need to dilute equity. And therefore, if I have to look at the interests of our shareholders at the top, which is the bank, there is no compelling reason for us to be taking it to the public markets, because they are all value accretive. And I would like the stakeholders and shareholders of Kotak Mahindra Bank to benefit out of those businesses.
Okay, sir. All the best to you and to Kotak Mahindra Bank.
Thank you.
Thanks, Poonam. Ashish?
Thank you.
Sir, good evening. Thanks. Majority of my questions have been answered. Just a small clarification, sir. When you say that non-essential economic activity has to be looked at with a lot of force as we seek to protect lives, so and also coupled with the statement which you gave yesterday, so are you actually probably advocating for the national level measure beyond the localized lockdowns which you are seeing right now, sir?
My answer to that is we have to go by the views of experts. And I've said that in my statement yesterday. Experts, both India and overseas. Okay. And let us go with science. Let us go with expertise. And the key to that is our infrastructure capacity to manage this pandemic. If there is an infrastructure capacity, if, for example, our oxygen supplies across the country get better, then the answer is different. But if that is going to be a continuing challenge, which is what experts have to tell us who are managing the oxygen situation, or the hospital beds, or trained doctors and nurses, we are underestimating the needs for additional doctors and nurses. I think this government is taking steps, and we must get a lot more doctors and nurses, whether it is people who are still in the last year of their MBBS or in their nursing training college, or having short courses, or even inviting NRI doctors and nurses who want to come back and help the country. We must increase healthcare capacity, and that should be the basis. Take the expert view on that.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ashish. Anurag?
नमस्ते सर आप जिस तरह से बता रहे हैं कि नॉन एसेंशियल सर्विसेज जो है उन पे पूरी तरह से रोक लगनी चाहिए, तो क्या माना जाए कि सर आगे चल के आपका मानना जो पिछली साल जिस तरह का मॉरिटोरियम दिया गया था उसकी भी स्थिति बन सकती है? क्योंकि इस बार अभी आपने ही कहा है कि सेमी अर्बन और रूरल एरिया में भी स्थिति थोड़ी नाजुक बनती जा रही है.
मेरे हिसाब से ये मेरा व्यू है. पैच लगाने से कुछ नहीं होगा. Okay, financial institutions have to face reality. And agar economy mein shocks hai, then extend or pretend is not a good answer. We have to face reality, and answer to stress is beef up your capital and take the knock on your chin and support those borrowers if they need more time, but not by postponing the reality on the bank's balance sheet. The banks and financial institutions must be ready to take the pain. And if a borrower needs restructuring, make provisions in your books and give restructuring to the borrowers on merit. But to say I will do restructuring only if the policy maker says you will not have to take on your balance sheet, that is wrong. Your pain on the balance sheet has to be supported by your capital. और ये जो बात है कि मैं बोरोअर के लिए रीस्ट्रक्चरिंग तभी करूंगा जब मुझे पॉलिसी मेकर बोलेगा। मैंने पैसा दिया है, I have to see what is the ability of that borrower to pay now. If I give him 12 or 18 months, can he be viable? Can he then pay me? And in the meantime, if I have to take a judgment call and make provision in my books, let us do it. And for that, I need what is known as the most important vitamin is capital. So let us not get away from capital and expect the regulator to solve the problem of stress by putting a little bit of a tape. वो नहीं चलेगा sustainably because आज तो 2.0 है. What happens with the risk of if 3.0 risk comes in? तो कब तक अपन moratorium करते रहेंगे, without adequate provisioning, restructuring करते रहेंगे?
Hi, sir. Sorry, I had a follow-up question with respect to your CASA base. Now, there the current account deposits have risen sharply, about 20-21%. I just wanted to understand from you: is this largely because the bank has been signing up new customers on the current account side, or has there been a rise in corporate holdings with the bank, showing that probably corporates are cash rich at this moment?
I will ask my colleague Manian, who handles corporates. Manian.
Yeah. So it's a combination. It's of course acquiring new customers for current account is a continuous process, and that is always there. But in addition to that, I think the capital market activity was also quite good in the last quarter. So that also resulted in general a lot of IPO activity and capital market activity also resulted in CASA balances. So I would say it's a combination of both a regular new acquisition of customers, both retail and corporate, as well as robust capital market activity.
Okay, since I have you on that question, sir, I just want to understand with respect to the corporate borrower situation. Now, a lot of the ask from the banking industry seems to be for retail and MSME. Largely, even in the last round of restructuring, corporates didn't really take up that scheme much. In the current round, also, people don't seem to be like really running after some kind of support. Are corporate borrowers way better placed to face this pandemic than some of your smaller borrowers?
Yeah. So if you look at the COVID 1.0, clearly corporates showed very good resilience. If you see, first of all, there are three things that happened in my mind. One is, of course, that many of them cut costs and therefore brought in more efficiencies. Second, they cut their balance sheet working capital needs and balance sheet. They reduced borrowings. And third, many of them raised funds, both debt and capital, through capital markets and equity as well as debt. And therefore, all these phenomena actually kept the corporate balance sheets quite healthy, balance sheets and profit and loss accounts quite healthy. And I would say in phase one, unlike if you go back to GFC, the kind of stress corporates saw has not been the case now. Another theory, of course, is that maybe most of the stress that the corporates had to see was already, the big ones were already into IBCs and the restructuring and all that. And therefore, what were left were reasonably healthy. So I would say, if the second, I do see us well positioned, corporates well positioned, in general, our book well positioned. Like Uday said a while back, we are expecting the COVID 2.0 to be a short burst up and short quick way down. If that is the case, I see corporates remaining fairly, the situation will remain quite okay.
Okay, thank you so much.
Ankur, you want to ask next question?
Hello. So just a clarification on the part where you said that, the physical collections is included in non-essential activities which will be curtailed. I just wanted to know, apart from that, what are the things which will not be done? I'm sorry if it is little repetitive.
Okay. I think in terms of how do we respond as an institution and a responsible institution to the pandemic today? We have said that employees in general shall not come shall not go out to work for the next 1 week without specific approval of senior management. So it is reverse. You cannot go out to work without approval. Second, we have a responsibility as an essential service provider as a bank. Therefore, in our branches, in normal course, say we have 8 to 10 people in our branch, we are restricting it to no more than 3 for basic essential services, at least for the next 1 week. Okay? Because a lot of our employees have had risk because they have faced customers, and customers are at risk, vice versa, and employees between them. Or they've gone out on a collection call because we are encouraging our employees for collection or even sales to do it out of their virtual world by mobile devices, by iPads, by computers, but avoid physical face-to-face meetings. And if you're saying that the only way I can collect is by physically meeting a customer, both are being put to risk for the next 1 week at least. And things improve, we will change. But we have an obligation to our employees, their families, and to society. We will not put them to risk just because we can get money quicker out of a borrower by putting everybody's lives to risk. And this is what we are saying. And we have to step up and lead by example. It does not matter what other financial institutions do or not do. Our every employee of ours, we will try to protect their lives. And next 1 week, they shall not go out unless approved, or it is required to meet the law of essential services.
Got it, sir. Also, sir, I wanted to know that how has been the collection efficiency in the March quarter, if you can provide me the number. Thank you so much.
Jaimin?
If you look at things, March has been quite fine. And if you look at every quarter for the year has been better than the last quarter. So you still, again, to cut across some of the products, some products you are kind of as good as what was there pre-COVID. Some of the products still not as much there. But the real test, as I think we explained earlier, is going to be what we see in April and May. But March overall has been better than what was there from the previous one.
Aparna?
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, Aparna. Please ask.
Yeah. I have only one question for Mr. Kotak. You said that you will take advantage of lending opportunities on your terms, and you're hopeful that such opportunities are around the corner. You sound more optimistic on the lending opportunities, even though we are in the midst of a second wave. FY21, you have been more guarded because the loan growth has been around 2% or so. Would you hazard a guess or what kind of loan growth in numerical terms are you envisaging for FY22?
See, this is a movie which turns every day. But our current view of the movie is, and I'm saying that there's a tragedy in this movie, unfortunately, which we are all living through. Okay. But the way I look at the current situation is, my hope is that this is like what you saw in the UK, for example, a sharp rise of numbers up and a sharp downward move as well. If that happens, then hopefully by June or July, we should see this curve come down sharply. Therefore, we are using this period to get ourselves ready, and we will be flying through the clouds through this period. However, unlike what most of us in India did between phase 1 of COVID and phase 2 of COVID, we will not plan the future based on 3.0 never happening, as most people in India did not plan for 2.0. So we will factor in the risk that if 3.0 comes, are we well positioned? Because finally, a financial institution must have strength and stability. It must have the resilience and sustainability through shocks. And therefore, we will plan for these shocks, and we will, despite the potential shocks which may come, we will grow through it. One is by superior underwriting, 2 by significantly higher capital buffer, 3, by a much lighter balance sheet and higher capacity to grow compared to the size of the current loan book. Therefore, these are the things which we have got in place, and we will leverage this to grow through this in 21-22. Because if economy has to be restored faster, it will require banks to also be able to be there and not be hurt so much by COVID 2.0 that it will take some of them longer time to come back.
Okay. So you haven't given me a number, but well, I take your point.
Tell me when is 3.0 coming, or it's not coming.
Priyanka, you had another question.
Yeah, just a quick question on the outlook on the home loans side. Is it likely to continue like this, considering that all parts of the country are now affected? And how long is this rate of interest going to be sustainable or okay for Kotak Mahindra Bank to carry on with?
Okay, the fact of the matter is, I'm very happy to say that we are amongst the lowest cost of funds player in Indian banking, amongst the lowest. Therefore, we have the ability to be able to provide home loans at a very attractive price to our borrowers. Therefore, at this point of time, as you know, even in the month of March and April, while many other people actually raised rates, we did not raise our rates. We held on to 6.65 rate. And at this point of time, we have no intention of increasing our rates.
Advait, you had a follow-up question?
Yeah, hi. Let's assume that the current essential services policy for employees continues for more than a week. Are your digital sales channels capable of taking on the volumes that you've seen? I know last quarter you had given us a breakdown on home loans, the throughput of digital channels for selling home loans and things like that. So I just wanted to get some color on that. Are you working on scaling other products that are currently not entirely digitized?
Deepak Gupta on digital and how we are gearing up for that opportunity.
No, Advait, don't be in a hurry to sell. I'm saying 1 or 2 weeks delay will not change the proposition really. Yeah, I think we have to give time to our salespeople, frontline people. Yeah, so there is no tearing hurry to go out and sell. Having said that, I think all the digital channels are really working. So the sourcing, whether it is not just on the asset side, whether it is on the liability side, and each of the asset side, whether it's the credit cards or the personal loans or the home loans, all of those are on. So on digital, there is no scalability problem. Okay.
Mr. Kotak, sorry, just to follow up, you're keeping your powder dry, etc., and looking at inorganic opportunities as the bank always has been. But anything you could tell us that is on the table, especially keeping in mind, City India looking to wind down its business. Is that attractive for Kotak Mahindra Bank? Are you going to evaluate it when it comes to the market? Thank you.
Ritu, I promise you, we are evaluating every single proposal in the financial sector which comes.
Anything you can share?
One of our busiest divisions in terms of evaluation is our strategy division. And we take a long time, but when we do it properly. You may remember that 2 or 3 acquisitions which we did in 2015. ING Vysya Bank. We worked on it for a long time, but we finally did it. Or MCX, when we took a strategic financial stake of 15%. We worked on it and we did it. So we don't want to, if there's one thing you learn in the whole inorganic business, is don't rush into it, because that's the way you get headlines and attention. But be chugging away, and there will come a time when it will make sense for us and it will click. And therefore, we are very active, we are focused, and as soon as we have something to report, we will be back with you. Okay?
Will it be in the near future, given that now 6 years have lapsed since your last large acquisition?
Ritu, I mean, you and I have different perspective on the near future. So we will certainly keep you posted, and all the people who are there, rest assured, it is on our radar in terms of looking at inorganic, but we like to be patient. and we like to be thorough.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think we are done with the questions. Uday, if you had any last.
No, I just
closing
wanted
comments.
to tell all my friends from media, many of you people are taking extraordinary risks. Please take care. And we are all in it together. And we have to work together to get India back on its feet as soon as possible. That has to be our mantra number one. We owe it for all of us. Thank you very much and happy to be with you. Thank you.